evening, you're watching The Buck Stops Here and I'm Barkhadad. On the program this evening, our special focus will be on criminals in politics. Why is it that parliamentarians who can't agree on anything else got together just yesterday to strike down a Supreme Court order that stops anyone who's in jail or police custody from contesting an election? The numbers of criminals in politics are staggering and we'll be putting that question to our politicians tonight. Also coming up later on the program, at a time when most politicians that we know simply cling to power, the story from neighbouring Bhutan, the story of a royal family that actually gave up power to create among the world's youngest constitutional democracies, the Queen Mother of Bhutan, in a special interview.
His Majesty the 14th, my husband, he felt that democracy, however flawed, is the best form of governance.
Let's get started with our special focus on the buck stops here this evening. Criminals in politics, everybody makes the right noises, but when it comes to the law, our parliamentarians are quick to block any attempt at a clean-up of the system. Just yesterday, the Rajya Sabha unanimously passed a bill. When else are they unanimous about anything? Well, they unanimously passed a bill that actually overturns a Supreme Court order that stops those in jail or police custody from contesting an election. Is this a case of a divided polity that has got united in self-interest? And how will our politics ever be cleaned up? Let's introduce our panel this evening. Joining us now is S.Y. Qureshi. He's of course the former Chief Election Commissioner of India. The Election Commission has been fighting a long but often hopeless battle to wield more authority with respect to debarring criminals from politics. We're also joined by Gopal Subramaniam, the former Solicitor General of India and a senior advocate with the Supreme Court. Joining us today is Abhishek Manu Singhvi, Rajya Sabha Member of Parliament, spokesperson of the Congress Party. We're also joined by D. Raja, National Secretary of the CPI. And also joining on the panel this evening is Panda. He's a Member of Parliament with the Biju Janata Dal, but somebody, one of the rare voices, who's actually come out on record and said he disagrees with the kind of unity the political class has shown in striking down what the Supreme Court thought was better to clean up the system. Before I get our politicians into this debate, S.Y. Qureshi, may I start with you? How disappointed are you with the unanimity that the Rajya Sabha has shown? Because if you look at the figures that have been painstakingly drawn up by ADR, the Association for Democratic Reforms, they're actually staggering. 20 of our members of parliament face an attempt to murder charge. 14 MPs are facing actual murder charges. There are criminal charges against 161 MPs. Serious criminal charges against 74. And if you look at the assemblies, it's even more dire. There are serious criminal charges against 567 MLAs. S.Y. Qureshi, when you see the Rajya Sabha unite to actually turn down what the Supreme Court ordered in a watershed judgment, how cynical are you today?
Barkha, it's a very wide issue which we have been contesting for the last 20 years, that criminals should be debarred from contesting election. And our demand has been that even during trial, at least in the serious cases, heinous offences like rape, dacoity, murder and kidnapping, they should be debarred from contesting. We are always told that the law of the land is that you are innocent till proved guilty. One counter question which I have been asking is that in Indian jails today we have about 4 lakh prisoners, 2,68,000 of whom are under trial, that means not yet convicted, not therefore innocent, but they can't even vote. So if you can take away 4 of their fundamental rights, right to liberty, freedom of movement, freedom of occupation, right to dignity, 4 fundamental rights of people under trial, the right to contest is not even a fundamental right. Yes. So why not it should be held in abeyance? I don't know why the parliament and the government has been dragging its feet on it. But the recent judgments, actually there is a bit of a confused issue. There are 2 judgments. One is that on conviction, earlier the Representation of People Act said that even when you are convicted and you go in appeal, then you are not unseated. Yes. Immediately. Now that runs contrary to the Constitution. So the Constitution says that once you are convicted, not only you are unseated, you are disqualified from contesting another election. So that of course was contrary to the Constitution. The other issue of course the judgment is that even if in detention or even police custody, they cannot contest. That I think is a dangerous proposition, because that can be abused. Yes. As it is, election, while on one hand Election Commission is concerned that the criminals should be kept out of politics, but at the same time Election Commission is equally concerned that the ruling party should not abuse its authority, because if I can't defeat you electorally, I hold you in police custody for a day on the day of nomination.
So from what I understand, there's a part of the judgment that you agree with, a part of the judgment that you found excessive. But very important point raised by S.Y. Qureshi, let me take this to Abhishek Singhvi, about the fundamental right to vote. The fact that someone in police custody, the fact that someone who's in under trial doesn't actually enjoy that right today. Abhishek Singhvi, my question is this: if our parliamentarians were so exercised about convicted MPs and MLAs being debarred from contesting elections, why didn't they exercise some more energy to actually give under trials or those in police custody the right to vote? Because after all, as Mr. Qureshi says, the right to vote is a fundamental right. The right to contest elections is not.
Barkha, I hope you'll give me my 2 minutes because we've gone way beyond all over the place in the topic. Sometimes you have to be narrow and precise. First of all, we are not discussing the general issue of criminalization of politics. I'm all with you. We have to do a lot of things to prevent it, and the simplest is to have a cutoff when court frames charges against you for specified serious crimes, and I am very sad that the political class has not got time to pass that law. But not passing a law and dragging your feet is one thing on which I agree that we are culpable collectively. It is quite a different thing to criticize what happened yesterday. Yesterday, the Rajya Sabha, my house, unanimously passed a 2-line or a 3-line amendment to the Representation of People's Act. That in turn overturned a 3-paragraph Supreme Court judgment. That is the only issue on which you are having the program. So let's not generalize. That judgment is called Jan Chaukidar's judgment. That simply holds by extrapolation, which I think is completely wrong, and I'm sorry I have to be technical, but without being precise, you can't understand this topic. Jan Chaukidar in a 3-paragraph judgment upheld a Patna High Court judgment, yes, which said that if you cannot vote because you are in custody, and remember, custody has nothing to do with conviction. You can be under trial, you can be pre-conviction, you can be post-conviction. Anybody who is in custody cannot vote. That is 62(5). That is created so that you don't have to transport large number of people behind bars who can insist that we want to go 2 kilometers away to vote. That's impracticable, and that's been on the statute book for a long time. The High Court, which the Supreme Court upheld, extrapolated that principle to say that merely because you can't vote because you are behind bars, you also cease to be an elector and therefore you can't contest.
But isn't that
now
only
that may
fair?
or may not be
isn't
desirable.
That only fair? If I'm under trial, I lose my right to vote.
Not
as a
at
citizen,
all.
I lose my right to vote. Why should I have a right to contest?
Two things. Barkha, two things. Just a minute.
Yes.
A, there is no law, no provision, no comma, no full stop which says in the law, in the statute book, in the legislation, that merely because you are behind bars you can't contest. Because people contest and win without campaigning for a single day. You don't have to go out like you have to go to vote. Second, very important, the judgment has not a single, it's a 3-paragraph judgment. 3 paragraphs. Now, what I am trying to say is that the Supreme Court ought to have either gone into it in great detail or indeed exhorted, and public opinion should have exhorted, that you make a fresh law that people behind bars can't contest. But my problem with the judgment, which is rightly overruled by yesterday's amendment, is that by implication, both the Patna High Court and Supreme Court are wrong to say by implication, yes, merely because you are behind custody and therefore you can't vote, it follows that you can't contest. That's the short point. But we are, remember, Barkha, we are not discussing Lily Thomas's judgment. That's the other issue.
No, we would like to discuss both.
And you
Abhishek Singhvi, we would like to discuss both.
One second. Barkha.
Yes.
Barkha, my comments are restricted to the first one because yesterday's amendment in the law dealt only with the Jan Chaukidar judgment, not with the Lily Thomas judgment. Okay. Lily Thomas judgment is something totally different. It is on section 8(4) as to whether once you are disqualified, once you are convicted, does the disqualification attach immediately or do you get a window to appeal or seek a stay? That's a different issue altogether.
But Abhishek Singhvi, even on that we have seen political murmurs.
To be castigated.
One minute. Even on that we have seen political opposition.
Erroneous judgment.
Okay, we'll come back to you on that. Jay Panda, 2 different things have happened and Abhishek Singhvi rightly points them out. One is the Supreme Court saying that MPs or MLAs should not continue if convicted for 2 years or more. If the crime merits a 2-year or more prison sentence, that's one aspect. The other thing that has been overturned by the Rajya Sabha is that if you're in custody, you still cannot vote, but you can contest. I still maintain my question, Jay, and that question is, isn't the right to vote more fundamental than the right to contest?
Barkha, I think the bigger issue is that we in the political class are largely out of sync with the public mood which is outraged at what they see as the lowering of public standards. There are two issues here, but let me address them very clearly. Now, when a person is convicted, when an average citizen is convicted, she or he is not allowed to contest elections. So it is abominable that somebody who is already elected, either MLA or MP, can continue if she can or he can appeal. That's just not acceptable. And I think we should deal with that first, because this is an exemption we have created for ourselves. And I have moved a private member's bill to do that. And Abhishek Singhvi is right that that issue was not taken up yesterday in Rajya Sabha. I'll come to the issue which was taken up. But the important issue is that we are out of sync with the public mood. We are out of sync with basic standards of ethics and governance, and we need to take that on and change it. The real problem is many of our politicians argue that appeals can take a very long time in the Indian system, and the answer to that is to have fast-track courts. And although we should have fast-track courts for every citizen, I think let us at least have fast-track courts to deal with criminal allegations against politicians. If VIPs, who I think these days can be better described as very indicted people or very implicated people, if they can have privileges such as not being frisked at airports, if they can have privileges such as having red beacon cars, then I think they should have the privilege of fast trial so that conviction can either be upheld or dismissed. But on the other issue, yes, I agree with Mr. Qureshi. And also with Abhishek Singhvi that if you are simply in custody and you are not convicted, you can be in custody for a minor traffic violation or something like that, and that should not be held against you for contesting. But we need to tackle the core issues, and we are not doing it.
Gopal Subramaniam, if I can get you there before going to D. Raja and then back to Abhishek Singhvi, one of the things that makes me increasingly cynical is the kind of platitudes I've heard from politicians, for example, on the Mumbai gang rape. And the reason this makes me cynical is that I have asked every single politician of every single party what they have done to stop giving tickets to men who are facing rape charges. And look at the figures here. This is again from ADR. We have 6 MLAs presently, elected MLAs who face rape charges. Over the last 5 years, 27 assembly candidates faced rape charges but were given tickets. 6 Lok Sabha candidates in 2009 faced rape charges. 260 assembly candidates faced charges of crimes against women. 36 MLAs in particular face charges of crimes against women. Gopal Subramaniam, when you were part of the Justice Verma committee, you actually suggested that once charges are framed by the court, then that person should not be allowed to contest. That recommendation was not accepted. When you see the political class today uniting to question what they say is the Supreme Court overreach, what would you say to them?
I don't think there's any overreach at all. I think the Verma committee actually took even a more strategic position. That is, even if cognizance was taken, that is much earlier than what Abhishek rightly described as the framing of charge stage, you should step out of the electoral fray. After all, even cognizance implies application of judicial mind. But certainly I think, as Jai Panda said, the moment there is conviction, I think this is not a case of malicious prosecution. If a court which is independent under our constitution comes to a conclusion that somebody is guilty of an offence which warrants, let's say, 2 years or more, and you have any number of categories of cases ranging from murder to rape, are we to believe that these persons must actually claim a sanctimonious position to still assert that they should be a part of the political class which is actually responsible for administering the constitution in the country? Yeah. Ultimately, we must understand that anybody who seeks election to a public office, like a legislator in the legislature or parliament, he is holding a public office which is constitutionally recognized as a constitutional office. Now, how does he actually determine that he should be able to continue notwithstanding a conviction? Yeah. When you actually see the amendments Barka to the Representation of People Act, when you look at Thakur Das Bhargav's committee's report which led to the first amendments in '56, the Election Commission's continued recommendations over a period of time, there can be no manner of doubt that these amendments have been stonewalled over a period of time. And the reluctance to actually deny people who are convicted a place to contest, I think is a very telling, it's a very appalling reflection according to me, on those who have to take this decision. After all, you have to set standards for the future.
Okay,
Are we setting standards?
Yes. Let me just get Abhishek Singhvi in there briefly.
Are we setting the right standards is the question.
Abhishek Singhvi, you've got your hand up, so I'll give you a rebuttal there. And I'm also coming in with a question of my own to you, because you said that the Rajya Sabha restricted itself to actually the issue of those who are in custody. The fact of the matter is that even when it comes to the other judgment, which is that MPs and MLAs cannot continue if convicted for 2 years or more, we have seen politicians ganging up to oppose this. And let me just read to you from what your own government affidavit said to the Supreme Court. Among the other justifications that it gave for this for opposing this, they said that this could have serious consequences for a government surviving on a razor-edge thin majority. The centre actually justified a legal provision in the election law that protects a convicted MP or MLA, and said that this would reduce the strength of the House and also decrease the number of members of the political party to which the convicted person belongs. Now, I mean, are we really saying that because we live in the age of coalition politics, we need more criminals?
Very precisely and narrowly. First of all, there's nothing to rebut, because I find that I'm agreeing with most things said and people are more or less endorsing me as well. First, as far as yesterday's amendment, which is the immediate provocation, I made my point. It is a limited amendment. It is perfectly right. It is overruling erroneous judgment of Supreme Court, and it is only suggesting that merely because you are in custody, remember, not conviction, you cannot vote doesn't mean you cannot stand for election. Point number 2. I personally entirely agree that it's high time the political class collectively, and let me tell you that there have been about 5 all-party meetings on this, to my knowledge, over the last 8 years or so.
Yeah.
They've somehow eluded consensus. But the simple test, a one-line test would be, of course, you can have different views. Gopal is right, you can have cognizance. Panda is right. Conviction cannot really be the basis, because conviction is the closest we have to eternity. Therefore, the correct thing in between is classify 10 serious offences, whether you call it rape, kidnapping, murder, etc., etc. And the stage of charges being framed by a court is a reasonable cutoff.
Yeah.
You can quibble over the details, but at that stage, everybody should be disqualified. Point number 3, the Lily Thomas issue is a third basket. Now there, I agree with you. See, when matters are argued in court, as Gopal knows, he's been a law officer, I've been a law officer in 97, a stand is taken. That part is over now. That's the stand of the government, which was put on affidavit. Now it is overtaken by the judgment. Now we are talking of what the legislature should do. My party or the government has not yet moved. I am not privy to what they are going to move. It was not yesterday's amendment. I'll tell you my frank, candid, personal opinion.
Would you support the Supreme Court judgment? Would you support it?
I would support the Supreme Court judgment with a clear modification.
Okay.
You should not have, as the Supreme Court says, on disqualification on the same day, I as a sitting person, on conviction, I lose my seat.
Okay.
Equally, you should not have what 8(4) today permits, that if I am convicted as a sitting person, I merely filing an appeal, get a lease of life indefinitely. The simple one-line amendment which will solve the problem, in my personal opinion, I'm not speaking for the party, is that you say, if I am convicted as a sitting legislator, so long as I don't get a stay of the conviction within 1 month, or give some time, 2 weeks or 1 month or 6 weeks, then I shall lose my seat. That's a very fair thing.
Okay, but can
I agree that we don't need an indefinite privilege. We also don't need automatic disqualification, in that immediately next day Parliament is 1 seat vacant. So I think the fairest is this middle path. I don't know what the government will do in the amendment if and when they bring it. I don't know what other things will happen, but this is my very clear, candid view.
But you know, Abhishek, this is your personal opinion, and it's welcome. But D. Raja, the fact is, Jay, I'm coming to you in just a second. I see your hand up. D. Raja, the fact is that there is so much cynicism today that when we see this amendment, which Abhishek Singhvi calls a limited amendment brought in by the Rajya Sabha, the expectation is that the next amendment will take on the Supreme Court judgment even on convicted MPs and MLAs, because we haven't seen any welcoming by any political party. In fact, Jay Panda has welcomed it. Abhishek Singhvi is making a personal caveat. Jay, coming to you in just a second. D. Raja, do you support the judgment that says convicted MPs and MLAs who are sentenced for 2 years or more should not be qualified to contest elections?
Barka, thanks for coming to me. I must make certain things clear. My party, the Communist Party of India, is one of the first parties which has been fighting against criminalization of politics, politicization of criminals as a matter of principle. Having said that, I must comment upon what happened yesterday in Rajya Sabha. I was in Rajya Sabha. I said it in very certain terms. Yesterday what Rajya Sabha did was a limited thing.
Okay.
It had to do, the bill had a limited purpose because it had to do it in the light of Supreme Court judgment upholding the Patna High Court judgment about a person in lawful police custody. That is what one has to understand. It is not about entire conviction or entire gambit of issues. Whether a person in lawful custody of police can contest elections,
but Mr. Raja, what
can
about the
vote
wider
for
question?
in the elections.
The wider
That
question
is the
is
simple
criminalization.
issue.
I'm asking you a pointed question. There is a Supreme Court judgment that says MPs or MLAs cannot continue convicted by court for 2 years or more. Yes. Yes, Mr. Raja.
No, wait for a second. Wait for a second. That was the limited purpose for yesterday's bill passed by Rajya Sabha unanimously. There I agree with Ms. Qureshi, who said the Indian democracy is a parliamentary democracy. It is also a multi-party democracy. Any party which is in power can use this clause to prevent some people fighting elections or contesting elections, taking them under police custody a day previous nomination day. So we will have to be very careful. Coming to the conviction, yes, there is a law already. If a person is convicted for more than 2 years, he cannot contest elections. There is a law. But now the question is a larger issue. When you talk of criminals, yes, Ms. Qureshi gave details of criminals, heinous crimes, what are the heinous crimes. But there are political activists, social activists who agitate, who demonstrate, who picket against the government's policies. How do you demarcate the political activists, social activists from hardcore criminals?
Okay, let me take that to Jay Panda straight away and then S.Y. Qureshi. Jay Panda, come in there.
Treat the
Yeah, D. Raja got your point.
That is the issue. That is the issue. I said even model code of conduct is not clear in demarcating criminals and political activists. There the RPA Act, certain provision of the RPA Act has become ultra-virus according to the Supreme Court.
Jay, go ahead.
That is so RPA Act is the act of Parliament. It is for the Parliament to
Mr. Raja, I've got your point, sir. Let Jay respond. Jay, go ahead.
Barkha, first of all, a factual correction. You said no party has welcomed the Supreme Court judgment. Let me point out to you that the BJD, my party, has given a public statement to the media. It is on the record welcoming the Supreme Court judgment with regard to disqualifying convicted MLAs and MPs. And so I'm not only speaking in my personal capacity. Let me also agree with you that the majority of political parties are not welcoming the Supreme Court judgment. So what is happening is when the government is convening an all-party meeting, the intention is actually to find a way around it. That's not what the government should be doing, because the government doesn't need to do anything. There is now a Supreme Court judgment. It is now the law of the land, and convicted MPs and MLAs will and should get disqualified.
But what about what D. Raja is saying, which is probably, Jay, what is happening at all the all-party meeting, that there is political activism, that higher courts sometimes overturn sentences, give acquittals and so on.
So my point is, the only thing that the government needs to do, as it has been setting up fast-track courts for certain high-profile criminal cases, it should also set up fast-track courts so that elected officials' cases can be disposed of in 90 days. Fast-track courts have a very, very good track record. 84% of their cases have been disposed of, and this is what we should do so that nobody can complain that they are unfairly convicted and they are exempted from contesting elections.
All right, S.Y. Qureshi, look at some of the comments that were made in the debate yesterday, which all of our politicians are insisting is on the limited point of whether someone in custody should be allowed to contest an election or not. But I think for people watching this program, it really is about the larger issue of criminalizations. Now, the Law Minister says politicians are accountable to Parliament, to the Election Commission, to the country, to the people. We are the most accountable set of people in the country. Which other class is accountable to so many institutions? To which the leader of the opposition in the Rajya Sabha says the Supreme Court order has empowered a policeman to decide the fate of those seeking to contest elections. Police have become the final arbitrator on who can contest and who cannot. Are we going to risk the democracy to the police? Mr. Qureshi, do you agree with the limited amendment that the Rajya Sabha has brought in yesterday?
Barkha, if you may allow me to come back to the previous point first, because there is a limited constitutional question which I wanted to ask. Because my understanding is that the Constitution says that on conviction you are unseated and disqualified, whereas Representation of People Act says that in the case of sitting MLAs and MPs, unseating does not apply. So how can an act override the constitution? I think this was the limited point, and Bihar High Court only has clarified that, that an act cannot override a constitutional provision. So that is the first part of the debate. The second, I also feel very uncomfortable because, as I said, the Election Commission is equally concerned about level playing field. We are very concerned that the abuse of authority by the ruling party has to be neutralized. That's why we come down very heavily on the ruling party all the time. Now, if you, I cannot defeat you electorally, I just put you in police custody for a day on the day of nomination or scrutiny. Now, what do you do about that? I think that needs to be rectified.
Gopal Subramaniam, do you see a point there of the potential misuse? Because your committee had argued that even when charges are framed, now it could be argued that somebody could make even a charge of rape or attempt to murder because of political vendetta. This is what we hear politicians say all the time.
Well, I think the point which Abhishek made about classification of offences, I think, is the real answer. And that is what the Justice Verma Committee in its report has recommended. We recommended actually a detailing of all the offences which are serious in character, and in case there is a charge in respect of any one of those offences, of course we went to a stage even prior to the framing of a charge, like cognizance. But at least charge is one stage where there's definite application of mind, and there is going to be a consideration whether a person should face trial. At least it's a good, I think, a stop point at which you can say, well, if a charge has been framed against you in respect of one of these offences like murder, rape, dacoity, kidnapping and so on, you should actually step out of the electoral fray. The other point which Mr. Qureshi made is, I think, perfectly valid. It also, I think, addresses in part what Mr. Raja correctly said, that social and political activists must never be wrongly implicated. The tendency of false implication has become a pretty powerful and a brazen, shall we say, abuse, which is somewhat evident in today's democracy, with which I think the Election Commission has been correctly concerned. So I would say that on the second point, the limited amendment, there is a room, a definite room to revisit the Supreme Court judgment. Definitely, it is a debatable point.
I'm going to ask both D. Raj and Abhishek Singhvi very briefly, because Jay has made his position clear that on the second judgment, going beyond the limited amendment, Abhishek Singhvi, you have said that you would personally support the Supreme Court judgment with a cutoff and a categorization of crimes. Have I understood you correctly? Yes or no?
Yes, but my categorization has to be understood, because I believe that the present dispensation, and I'm saying it quite clearly, which gives an indefinite lease of life merely if I file an appeal, sounds very unjust to me, because that is a complete exemption from the law of conviction. Equally, I don't think the unsettling of the entire democratic polity on the very day of the judgment, you convict me today and you convict 20 people today, and tomorrow Parliament finds 20 vacant seats. That also is not a desirable conclusion. So I think I am speaking from as balanced a perspective I can make up. I think it's fair to say that give the person convicted between 4 to 6 weeks. If he doesn't get a specific stay of the operation of his conviction, or you could put some other statutory condition of a similar kind, then he must suffer the consequences.
Fair enough.
I don't see why that is not fair. But I must repeat, I cannot take responsibility for what all political parties together will decide on that front.
Or
so
even,
I don't
or even for your own party right now. Or even for your own party right now. We don't know what the Congress is going to decide.
As I said, yes, we don't know the frame of the bill which will be introduced.
D. Raja, are we going to see a bill, last word to you, very quickly, 10 seconds got to end. Are we going to see Parliament ganging up again to even question this Supreme Court judgment? Very quickly, sir.
With you saying Parliament ganging up, this gang is not a word which I appreciate. Parliament is Parliament. It is the supreme body in our democracy. It is the place where laws are discussed, laws are made, and Parliament is the law-making place. And let us have respect for Parliament. And political parties do have their own views. As far as my party is concerned, we have a code of conduct within the party. Whether the Election Commission has code of conduct or model code of conduct or not, we have a code of conduct, and we will not tolerate our cadres, our members indulging in some criminal activities. If they are brought to our notice, we take action.
Okay.
We don't put them as
We will
candidates.
leave it there, sir, but I'd like to say that ganging up is just a colloquialism to talk about a rare kind of political unity that we almost see on nothing else. So it does make the citizen of the country very cynical. And I think Parliament, as Jai Panda said, needs to get in sync with the public mood. I'm not talking about a lynch mob driven kind of justice that reverses the constitutional principle of innocent until proven guilty, but we have a deep-seated criminalization and it needs to be addressed. We'll leave it there. D. Raja, S.Y. Qureshi, Gopal Subramaniam, Jai Panda and Abhishek Singhvi, thank you so much for joining us on the Buck Stops here. So we watch our politicians united in what most of us believe is self-interest. The only kind of political culture that we've known is politicians who never want to give up power, not even a single day or a single hour. Perhaps the world's largest democracy could learn something from one of the world's newest democracies. The story of Bhutan, the story of a rare royal family that actually wants to push its country towards constitutional democracy. Bhutan has just recently completed its second ever parliamentary election. And tonight, our interview of the day is with the Queen Mother of Bhutan, Ashi Darji Wangmo Wangchuk.
It is a truth universally acknowledged that those who obtain political power never give it up. But that's what makes Bhutan's royal family so unique. This is a story of a royal family that decided to abdicate power and push its country towards the beginnings of democracy. Now, as Bhutan has completed its second parliamentary election, we're going to be speaking to somebody who has, Queen of this country, has trekked on foot the length and breadth of this Himalayan kingdom. Now think of how many politicians, elected or otherwise, you can think of in India who would do that. That's right, we are going to be talking to Her Highness Ashi Darji Wangmo Wangchuk, who is today the Queen Mother. She's of course was married to the fourth King of Bhutan and is the mother of the present King of Bhutan. It's such a pleasure to be talking to you here on a rainy day in Paro at your palace here. I want you to talk a little bit about what I mentioned, how unique it is for people like me to actually see a country where there's a family that wants to give up power, not hold on to it, but give it up, share it. Now this is a process that was started, of course, by your husband, the fourth King of Bhutan. He's the one who initiated the roots of democracy. When he decided to do that, he must have discussed it with you, he discussed it with the people of this country. What made him decide to do this? His Majesty the fourth King, my husband, and husband to my three younger sisters,
Yes.
he was very keen to start democracy in Bhutan, and this thought process, this idea for him started many years ago. Soon as he became king, he felt that democracy, however flawed, is the best form of governance. So he started decentralizing power from the center to the districts and further to the villages. Right back in 1981, and then in 1998 he gave up absolute power to an elected council of ministers.
When you discussed this with you and your three sisters,
Yes.
his four wives, what was your first thought?
Well, my response was, I knew it was coming because he had prepared for this for a long time. So it was a very natural thing. It's of total acceptance. And so His Majesty prepared the people by going to the people to explain the Constitution to the people, what it meant. And he said that it was time for them to take on, let's say, governance for themselves.
Now usually it's the other way around. When you look at the world today,
You look at what's happening in the Middle East, for example. You have people marching on the street demanding democracy. They're fighting for it. Here, even today, after the second election, my driver who brought me here to meet you said, we want to give power back to the monarchy. We want to give power back to the royal family. We preferred it that way. So here it's the other way around. You actually had to convince people that democracy is good for you.
Yes.
So how difficult was that?
It was very difficult in the beginning. His Majesty undertook many tours around the entire country, met with every member, a representative of every member of the family in each district, and explained to them. And people, they did not want democracy. They didn't understand democracy. All they knew was the king, and they wanted the king. So it was very difficult for His Majesty to explain to them that democracy is the best form of governance, because if they are not satisfied with a political party in power, they have the option through the ballot box, 5 years' time.
You've been queen for so many years, you're now queen mother. Did you ever feel that you would be losing your influence or your power? I know that the royal family is so beloved here in Bhutan.
In the first place, I never felt powerful.
You did?
Never.
Why is that?
Never.
Why is that?
Because you know that the background that I come from, I explained in the Mountain Echoes,
Yes.
I had a very typical village background. And after I became queen along with my royal sisters, our thought process, how we think, how we feel, we feel like every other Bhutanese.
You trekked across the breadth of this Himalayan kingdom. You walked sometimes for days. You spent nights in villages. Why did you decide to do that? Was it in a sense because you had come from that kind of village background, that you knew how people lived, you wanted to connect to them? Because in India, sometimes we feel that politicians meet people only when elections take place. So I'm telling you, nobody in India would believe that a politician, leave alone a queen, would actually walk on foot and make direct contact with the people living with them, eating the same food. Why did you decide to do that? And talk a little bit about that experience.
Actually, I'm so happy you asked me this, because it's also to do with my roots. But for many years, I was in Thimphu bringing up the children who were going to government schools here, our children. And after the children left for schools abroad, I felt I had more time on my hands, and I really wanted to go deep into Bhutan to see and to feel their lives, their aspirations, their day-to-day existence. And so I trekked. Sometimes I trekked for 19 days in a stretch.
19
days in a stretch, and I lost many toenails trekking. But I had the option of riding, of course. But I certainly didn't want that, because I mean, I wanted to feel how it was for the villagers themselves. But since then, that was a long time ago. I was 44, and now I'm 58. So
who would believe that?
I'm 58. So since then, there have been a lot of changes. We have more car roads connecting the villages, and I also started a foundation called the Tarayana Foundation. And this foundation, actually speaking, came about after my treks throughout Bhutan.
Talk a little bit about the change that is unfolding in Bhutan today. You speak about there being many more tarred roads today. I met somebody while here who said that that his children can't believe that
Till the 60s, in his area, there was no road. and younger people find it difficult to believe that Bhutan once did not have television, did not have the internet, did not have the mobile phone.
How do you calibrate the change? How do you ensure that the change doesn't take away from
the cultural rootedness of the Bhutanese people?
That's a very good question, Bharka. It's going to be a challenge. But nevertheless, we as Bhutanese and our country, we are very mindful in preserving our heritage and culture. As you can see, even you've become a Bhutanese today. You look very nice in a kira. So we wear kira in our daily lives, and we keep our spirituality intact. So it's a responsibility of the parents, I feel, to inculcate the continuity of our culture and our heritage.
When you were speaking as a mother, because you are the Queen Mother, when you were bringing up your son, who's the present king, were there ever arguments about change? Are there arguments between parents and children about the levels of change, about, somebody was saying to me that today's children are much more materialistic.
Right.
So do these kind of arguments go on today between parents and children?
Parents do. Parents do tell our children. For instance, I tell my children of my childhood and how lucky they are, how privileged they are. And we understand to a certain extent, but I think more than anything, since they haven't lived it, it's more or less becomes a story for them.
Yeah. It's an old tale.
Yes.
It's an old tale.
Because their story is their story. And Barker, just to set the record straight, His Majesty, our present king, is my son, but he's not my biological son. His Majesty the fourth king has 10 children, 5 princes. I mean, now our eldest is the king, and 5 princesses. And our third sister, she is the biological mother of our present king. But in all aspects, I am his mother.
It's an unusual family. I know that the public wedding ceremony of the 4 sisters to the 4th king happened after 8 of the 10 children were born. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
So tell us a little bit about that.
Raka, I also have to tell you that we had a wedding ceremony in 1979.
Yes.
That's before our present king. Our king was born. And it was a very private ceremony because of the fact that His Majesty had married 4 sisters, which is actually quite extraordinary.
It is.
Yes.
It is.
But extraordinary things for an extraordinary man, I would think. So, and in 1988, as you mentioned, all our 8 children were, 8 of our
8 of the 10 were
born.
Yes.
And we had the ceremony, and it was very, very special. Very special, because it's not very often that 8 children see their 4 mothers getting married to one father.
I can't think of anywhere else in the world where this has happened.
Yes.
Was it difficult to explain it to them? They were the children that
No.
unusual family.
No, it's absolutely natural, because we grew up together. So it was the most natural thing for them too. It wasn't at all, let's say, extraordinary for them.
And for you, was it ordinary or extraordinary?
For me, I think it was very not extraordinary.
Really?
Really.
Really?
Really. True.
Because?
Because we're sisters. We share the same parents, and it's not as if in the past that our kings had only one wife, one queen. In the past, for instance, our second king had two queens who were sisters. And also, I think that once as sisters, we love each other, and we love our king, and first and foremost, we look upon him as somebody who is our king first.
So he's king first and husband second?
He's absolutely king first. And
would he agree with that description?
Well, you'll have to ask him that. But I think, to be fair, I think he would prefer that he be husband first.
Yeah, I can imagine that. The world is changing, and this is such a liberal monarchy. What do you see the place of royalty in the modern world today? In many parts of the world, the monarchy no longer exists. In Bhutan, it is moving from absolute monarchy to constitutional monarchy. That has been the attempt of your family. What does the word royal mean to you in the modern world?
I prefer not to be actually mentioned as even royal. I would like to be called a Bhutanese first, a good Bhutanese citizen first and foremost. And now what we do is, at least there's a privilege of being a member of the royal family, in the sense that we are in a better position to help our people. So in forms of social work, and also in the, let's say, upkeep of tradition, art and culture, and as you know, the mountain echoes.
Yes.
So there's so much we can do to help.
You grew up in Kalimpong or studied in Kalimpong
I
for some
studied
time?
in Kurseong.
Yes.
That's a district of Darjeeling.
Yes,
Yes.
in Darjeeling.
Yes.
And that's where you acquired your love for Elvis Presley?
Yes.
I read somewhere that when Elvis died, you were in mourning.
Yes.
Did you really wear black for a week?
I did.
And you said that you continue to be in love with him.
Yes.
How did your husband, the king, react to this love? I guess it was too far away, it didn't matter, right?
No, because I think from, His Majesty, the fourth king, some people have said that he looks a combination of Elvis Presley and the late Bruce Lee. These both are late.
Yes.
So
Is that what drew you to the king?
I think definitely.
I want to ask you in the end, because you're so committed, you run a foundation, you walked across the Himalayan kingdom
Of Bhutan, you made direct contact with the people. In many countries in the West, whether it's a queen or the first lady, their roles are mostly ceremonial, they don't get involved in the politics. Do you see yourself as somebody who's actively involved in the future of Bhutan, in a sense?
Well, the royal family are supposed to be apolitical.
Yes.
So we do not get involved in politics. But we are very active in social causes that improve the lives of our people.
So you don't vote? Does the royal family
No,
vote?
we don't
You
vote.
don't vote?
We're not allowed to vote.
You're not allowed to
No.
vote? And why
No.
was that? Because you didn't want to be seen to be one
No, because-
side or the other?
Absolutely, absolutely. Because of the fact that you can't choose one side over the other.
And to all the Bhutanese people who I've met who say we want to give power back to the royals, what would you say to them today through this interview?
I would like to say that democracy was introduced by the throne. Respect the throne's wishes and make democracy vibrant. Just make it work for you.
Very unique country, and what a pleasure to talk to you.
A pleasure's mine.
Thank you so much.
Pleasure's mine.